AITA for refusing to let my sister name her child after my late dog. This is a long one, and I feel like it's going to get a lot of judgment, but here we go. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Lily, 28F, and we've always been close, but like any siblings, we have our share of conflicts. I also have a dog, Max, who's been my companion since I was 18. Max was more than a pet to me. He was a family member and honestly one of my best friends. He passed away about a year ago, and losing him was incredibly hard for me. I had a really tough time coping, and it was a huge loss for me emotionally. Fast forward a few months, my sister announced that she was pregnant. At first, I was ecstatic because I love kids and I adore her, so I was happy for her. But then she dropped the bomb. She said she wanted to name her baby Max. At first, I assumed she was joking, but she wasn't. She said she had always liked the name Max and thought it would be cute for her little boy. I froze because it hit me immediately how personal this felt. Max was my dog, my companion through my adult life. It's not like she wanted to name him after a historical figure or a celebrity we both liked. It was my Max. I told her, Lily, Max was my dog. I know you like the name, but it really doesn't feel right to me for you to use it. She got defensive immediately. She said, it's just a name. You're being dramatic. He's not even your dog anymore. I tried explaining that Max wasn't just a dog. He was a huge part of my life, and naming her kid after him feels like erasing that personal connection. I suggested she choose another name, or maybe we could come up with something that honored something meaningful to both of us instead. Instead of listening, she got upset and started guilt-tripping me. She said I was being selfish and controlling, that it's her child and she can name him whatever she wants. She said I was trying to control everything in her life and that I was overreacting. Our mom got involved, saying I was being ridiculous and that Max is just a name and kids can have the same names as pets all the time. I didn't want to escalate things, but I felt like no one was listening to me. I explained again that this isn't about controlling her. It's about respecting the memory of my dog, who was deeply important to me. I even offered an alternative. She could still name him Max if she wanted, but I asked that she call him by a different nickname at home, so it didn't feel like she was directly taking my dog's identity. She refused. The conflict really escalated when she started telling mutual friends that I was being unreasonable and selfish, painting me as the villain in this situation. Some of them agreed with her, saying I needed to let go and that it was just a name, but others were on my side, understanding that some attachments aren't just trivial. A few weeks ago, she threw a small gender reveal party, and I didn't go because I didn't want to deal with the tension. She announced the baby's name would be Max, and my heart sank. I didn't respond at the party. Later, I sent her a message saying I didn't want to have a relationship with the baby if she insists on the name because it feels like a disrespect to something very meaningful to me. She flipped out, calling me a horrible sister, and said I'm overreacting to a child's name. She blocked me for a few days, and now our communication is icy at best. I feel terrible because I love my sister and I do want to have a relationship with her and her child, but every time I think about that baby being called Max, it genuinely makes me upset and I feel like my grief for my dog is being disregarded. I've tried to compromise multiple times, offering nickname alternatives or suggesting using Max as a middle name instead of a first name, but she refuses. I'm torn. On one hand, it is her child, and technically she can name him whatever she wants. On the other hand, this feels like such a personal boundary for me, and I feel like no one is respecting the significance Max had in my life. I've been feeling guilty for feeling hurt and for even bringing this up, but it's been really weighing on me. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to accept my sister naming her baby Max? Character count, 6,512 if you want. I can also write an even longer, multi-layered version with extra family dynamics and side plots that would make it read like one of the most viral AITA posts ever. That could push it closer to 7,000 characters and really give it that dramatic flair. Do you want me to do that? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to give my sister a large sum of money, even though she claims it's for the family. I, 32M, have always been the responsible sibling when it comes to finances. My sister, Erica, 29F, has always struggled with money. She's had a string of underpaying jobs, bad investments, and what I'd call questionable financial decisions. Our parents had tried to help her in the past, but after a few large loans that she never fully repaid, they kind of stopped. I've managed to save a decent amount over the years, partly by living below my means, and partly because I just don't make impulse purchases. I bought my own house, I have a stable career, and I'm generally careful with my money. About 3 months ago, Erica called me out of the blue, very frantic. She said she was in a bind because her landlord was threatening to evict her and her kids. She has two, ages 6 and 8. She told me she needed $15,000 immediately to cover rent, utilities, and some overdue bills. I was shocked because I know her rent is maybe $1,200 per month, utilities maybe $200, so I asked for clarification. She said, "It's not just rent, it's everything. Medical bills, car repairs, back taxes. I need $15,000 to stabilize things." I told her I needed to think about it. I have $20,000 in savings earmarked for emergencies and retirement. Giving her $15,000 would basically wipe me out. She got very emotional on the phone, crying and saying, "You don't understand, this is for the family. You're the only one who can help us." I tried to reason with her, explaining that she could take out a loan, negotiate with the landlord, or seek help from local charities. She said none of those options were viable and that asking for help outside the family was humiliating. I finally told her I couldn't give her $15,000. She accused me of being selfish and holding money like a miser while your family suffers. She said that if I didn't help her, she didn't know how she'd survive, and then she hung up on me. Over the next week, I got a barrage of texts from her, our mom, and even our dad. My mom said, "You have to help her. She's struggling, and she's your sister." My dad said, "You can't just let family suffer when you're in a position to help." I explained my reasoning, that I couldn't risk my financial stability, that Erica has a history of mismanaging money, and that giving her that amount would not solve her underlying problems. They call me cold and selfish. Things escalated when Erica started messaging me on social media, tagging me in posts about family obligations and siblings who turn their backs on each other. She's even started posting screenshots of our arguments online, which I find humiliating. She's framed me as the villain in front of our extended family, saying I refuse to help the family in a crisis. Meanwhile, I did try to help in other ways. I gave her a list of local charities that assist with rent, food, and utilities. I offered to help her create a budget plan or find a financial counselor. I even offered her $500 to cover immediate food and essentials. But she rejected every suggestion, insisting only my large sum could save the family. The situation has become so toxic that family gatherings are now tense. My parents refuse to discuss finances with me directly because they are afraid of making Erica angry. My other siblings are caught in the middle, and it's causing rifts in our relationships. I feel frustrated and guilty at the same time. I know she's struggling, and I hate seeing her in distress, but I also feel that my financial well-being is important, and giving her $15,000 would be reckless. Recently, Erica sent me a long text saying, "If you won't help me, don't expect me to be around anymore. You clearly don't care about anyone but yourself." She also said she's going to ask our extended family for money and implied that she might even take legal action, though I'm not sure how that would work. I've been feeling torn because I do love my sister, but her behavior is manipulative and exhausting. I've also been thinking about the precedent it sets. If I give her the money now, she might expect similar bailouts in the future. On the other hand, I worry that refusing her might push her into a deeper crisis, and part of me feels like I'm failing as a brother. I haven't blocked her or cut off contact, but I'm now very hesitant to engage. I keep getting mixed messages from friends and family. Some say I'm being cruel and should just help. Others say I'm right to protect my finances. I'm trying to stick to my boundaries, but the constant emotional pressure and public shaming online are wearing me down. So, Reddit. AITA for refusing to give my sister $15,000 even though she claims it's for the family. I feel like I'm in an impossible situation, and I need an outside perspective on whether I'm being selfish or reasonable. AITA for refusing to help my sister after she financially sabotaged me. So, a bit of background. I, 34F, have a younger sister, Emily, 28F. Growing up, our parents favored Emily in certain ways because she was easier to handle, which left me handling a lot of responsibility early on. I have a steady job in IT, and I finally feel like I'm at a point where I can breathe and make some plans for my life without constantly cleaning up messes. Emily, on the other hand, has always had a more chaotic lifestyle. She's incredibly charming, but not particularly reliable with money, deadlines, or any kind of responsibility. A few years ago, our parents passed away within a year of each other. It was devastating, but Emily and I handled grief differently. I went into overdrive, making sure the house was in order, bills were paid, and their estate was settled correctly. Emily helped in small bursts, but mostly focused on the social aspects of the inheritance, celebrating, planning vacations, etc. After everything was settled, we divided the estate. I got a small cash inheritance, but I also got the house because I've been living nearby and it made sense for logistics. Emily got a larger cash sum. From my perspective, it was fair, and I even helped her invest part of it because she wasn't exactly financially savvy. Fast forward to now. Emily has been struggling with her finances for a while, mostly due to impulsive spending and some bad business ventures. She called me last month, panicked, saying she was facing eviction and needed a temporary loan. I offered to lend her some money, not the full amount she asked for because it was an absurd sum, but enough to tide her over for a couple of months. She was extremely grateful at first. Then, a few weeks ago, she asked if she could move in with me temporarily while she figured things out. I agreed under very specific conditions. She had to pay a small portion for utilities, contribute to household chores, and actively look for a new place. For the first week, everything seemed fine. Then, I started noticing some issues. Emily would use my things without asking, borrow my car without telling me, and leave bills in my name unpaid. She claimed she forgot each time, which I tried to overlook, thinking maybe she was stressed. But then, she started bringing over friends, hosting parties, and leaving the house in a mess. I confronted her multiple times, asking her to respect my space and agreements, but she brushed it off and said I was being controlling and ungrateful. The breaking point came 2 nights ago. I came home from work and noticed my bank account was nearly empty. Turns out, Emily had transferred a large sum from my account to pay off one of her overdue loans. She claimed she thought it was mine to use since I let her stay, and that I should trust family. I was furious. I confronted her, demanding she return the money. She refused and said that because I had the house and the inheritance, I didn't need it anyway, and this was her way of balancing things. I immediately asked her to leave, gave her a strict deadline of 2 days, and changed all my passwords and locks. Emily has since been calling me nonstop, texting about how I'm betraying her as a sister and threatening to involve other family members and friends to teach me a lesson. A few mutual friends have reached out, some saying I should be more understanding, while others are firmly on my side. I understand people make mistakes, but this feels intentional and manipulative. I even tried explaining calmly that borrowing money without consent and using my bank account was not only unethical, but illegal. She says I'm exaggerating and that I've always been controlling, twisting my own actions into a villainous narrative. I've been staying at a friend's place for the past 2 nights because I'm too upset to face my own house. I feel guilty for the situation escalating, but I also feel like I've been completely violated in my trust and personal space. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to continue helping my sister after she deliberately took a large sum from my account and is now refusing to leave. AITA for walking out of my sister's wedding because of a seating arrangement argument that got completely out of hand. I, 29M, have always been the more laid-back sibling, and my younger sister, Jessica, 27F, has always been the planner in the family. Growing up, she loved organizing events and making sure everyone knew exactly where they fit in, and honestly, I always let her take the lead because she genuinely enjoys it. So when she got engaged last year, I was happy to step back and let her handle the wedding planning. The wedding was in a big banquet hall in our hometown. Jessica had a very clear vision for everything. The decorations, the food, the playlist, even the order in which people were supposed to enter the hall. Most of it I didn't mind, but the seating arrangement ended up being a huge point of contention. Jessica and her fiancé, Mark, 30M, decided to have assigned seating for the reception. Fair enough, I thought. But apparently, a few seats became a battlefield. I have a close friend, Tom, 30M, who I've known since college. Tom is a bit socially awkward, but he's genuinely kind, and I wanted him to have a good time at the wedding. When I was asked for my guest preferences, I mentioned that I would like to sit near Tom, if possible. That's when things started to spiral. Jessica called me a week before the wedding and told me that she had placed Tom at a table with some of her other friends and family, far away from me. I asked why, and she said that the table had the right energy for him and that she didn't want people feeling uncomfortable. I shrugged it off at first, but she insisted that if I wanted to sit with Tom, I would have to switch tables with other relatives. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to cause drama. I just wanted to be near my friend. She told me I was being controlling and that I was overthinking everything. A few days before the wedding, I got another call. This time, Jessica told me that my uncle, my mom's brother, was also upset because he wanted to sit near my cousin's wife, and apparently he had influenced the table arrangements. By this point, I was realizing that it wasn't just about my preference. It was like everyone had a say, and she was trying to make everyone happy, which, as we know, is impossible. The wedding day arrived, and the tension was palpable. Guests were milling around, taking pictures, and trying to find their seats. I walked up to my table and found Tom sitting there alone. I was relieved, but then I noticed Jessica glaring at me from across the hall. I asked a staff member if there had been any changes to the seating, and they said no. I sat down, and shortly after, Jessica stormed over. She started whispering furiously, saying I wasn't supposed to be at that table and that I had disrespected her planning. I told her calmly that I just wanted to sit with my friend and that nothing else mattered to me. She snapped and said, "Nothing matters to you? You care more about your friend than your family." My uncle, who was at the next table, jumped in, saying that I was being selfish. Suddenly, it felt like everyone was ganging up on me. I tried to defuse it, saying that it wasn't about anyone being more important, but by now, Jessica was yelling, and a few other family members had gathered. I could feel my face turning red. I've never been much of a confrontation person, but I felt humiliated. I stood up and said, "Fine, I'm leaving," grabbed my coat, and walked out of the hall. Outside, I texted Tom to see if he wanted to join me, but he said he wanted to stay and support Jessica, so I left alone. I spent the rest of the evening walking around town, just trying to calm down. The next day, I received a flood of messages from family and friends. Jessica's friends were calling me dramatic and rude. Even some of my own family members were upset, saying I had ruined her special day. My mom called me, crying, asking why I would leave during such an important moment. I tried explaining that it wasn't about ruining her day, but about being treated unfairly in front of everyone. She said I should have just compromised, but to me, it didn't feel like compromise. It felt like bending over backward for everyone else while being scolded for having a preference. Jessica hasn't really spoken to me since, except for brief text messages where she says things like, "I hope you're happy with your choices." My father has suggested that I apologize, but I feel like apologizing would imply that I did something wrong by wanting to sit with my friend. I'm starting to feel isolated from my family, and it's stressful because the wedding has turned into this huge point of contention. I keep replaying the day in my head and wondering if I overreacted, but at the same time, I feel like the way Jessica and others treated me was unfair and humiliating. So, AITA for walking out of my sister's wedding over a seating argument? I should also add some context. I've always been the quiet, easygoing sibling, and Jessica is known for being a perfectionist. Usually, I try to avoid confrontations, but I felt backed into a corner that day. I honestly wasn't trying to ruin the wedding or embarrass anyone. I just wanted to sit next to my friend without being yelled at. Now, there's a tense atmosphere in the family, and some relatives have even taken Jessica's side, saying I was overreacting. I feel torn because I love my sister, but I also feel like my feelings were dismissed completely. I don't know if I should apologize, wait for things to cool down, or just accept that our relationship might be permanently strained. Part of me wonders if this would have blown over if we hadn't had the confrontation in front of everyone. But I also know that once a moment like that happens, it's hard to erase it. I'm looking for perspective. Was I the jerk for walking out, or was this a situation where standing up for myself was reasonable? Character count, 6,345. AITA for confronting my brother over his parenting choices and causing a family rift. I, 32F, have always been close to my family. I grew up in a relatively traditional household, but my parents always encouraged open discussion and questioning. My younger brother, Alex, 29M, has always been a bit different. More impulsive, more free-spirited, but a genuinely kind-hearted person. A few years ago, he got married to his wife, Melissa, 30F, and they had a daughter, Lily, who is now 4. For context, Alex and Melissa are very unconventional parents. They're extremely permissive, they don't enforce routines, and they allow Lily to make almost every choice herself. On paper, that might sound like a positive, kid-centered approach, but in practice, it's chaotic. Lily often skips naps, eats whatever she wants, and throws tantrums in public without any attempt to correct behavior. Melissa is fine with this, saying she wants Lily to learn through experience and develop autonomy naturally. Alex usually just nods along. I try to keep my distance from criticizing them because, ultimately, it's their child, their household. I do love Lily, and I try to visit as often as possible. But over the past few months, things have escalated in ways I can't ignore. During a recent family gathering, I noticed that Lily had spilled her drink and thrown her plate on the floor. Instead of addressing it, Alex and Melissa just laughed it off and encouraged her to explore her creative expression. I helped clean up, and while doing so, I made a gentle comment to Melissa, suggesting that it might be helpful to teach Lily about manners and responsibility in small steps. Melissa laughed it off and said, "She's a free spirit. She'll figure it out." This kind of thing happens constantly. Last month, Lily got a minor scrape while climbing on the couch. She wasn't in serious pain, but she was crying. Instead of helping her understand how to be careful, Alex told her, "You're tough. You can handle it," and walked away. A few days ago, I witnessed Lily wandering outside the backyard without shoes on. She was barefoot, chasing after the neighbor's dog, and Melissa was inside, ignoring it completely. I panicked and pulled her inside, which caused a huge argument with Melissa. So, the incident that led to the current family rift happened last weekend. Alex and Melissa invited the family over for a barbecue. I was excited to see Lily, but the chaos started almost immediately. Lily was running around barefoot, flinging food everywhere and screaming at the top of her lungs. Alex and Melissa were trying to enjoy themselves while occasionally laughing at her antics. My parents were looking uncomfortable but stayed quiet. At one point, Lily tried to climb a folding chair stacked on another chair to get a better view of the barbecue grill. I panicked and grabbed her just in time, but Alex saw it as overreacting. I told him calmly, "You can't let her do that. She could seriously hurt herself." Alex snapped and said, "She's learning. Stop treating her like she's made of glass." I felt my frustration boil over. I started talking more seriously, telling Alex and Melissa that their parenting style was not safe and was likely to cause Lily serious problems down the line, physically and emotionally. I mentioned that toddlers need structure, guidance, and limits, and laughing off dangerous or disrespectful behavior wasn't preparing her for the real world. Melissa crossed her arms and said, "You're just being controlling. We're fine." Alex chimed in, "You always think you know better. Maybe you should mind your own business." My parents tried to intervene, but it was too late. I told them that I couldn't stay silent while Lily's safety and development were at risk. I said I would step back from spending time with her unless they were willing to consider some boundaries and safety measures. The fallout was immediate. Alex and Melissa have barely spoken to me since then. My parents are upset with me for causing tension at what was supposed to be a happy family gathering. Other relatives who were there have texted me, privately saying that I was too harsh and should have let them handle it their way. I feel torn because on one hand, I truly believe I did the right thing in speaking up for Lily's safety. On the other hand, the confrontation has caused a serious rift in the family. I've tried to reach out to Alex multiple times, offering to have a calm conversation, but he ignores my messages or responds tersely. Melissa won't answer at all. My parents keep hinting that I should apologize for embarrassing them, but I feel like apologizing for raising legitimate concerns about a child's well-being would be disingenuous. I've debated whether I went too far. I could have tried a subtler approach, maybe involving my parents more or sending articles about child development instead of confronting them face to face. But seeing Lily at risk right in front of me, I couldn't stay silent. I feel guilty about the family tension, but I also feel like I would be betraying my conscience if I pretended everything was okay. So, Reddit, AITA for confronting my brother and sister-in-law about their parenting, even though it caused a huge family argument and tension? Or was I right to speak up, even if it strained our relationships? The situation has left me feeling isolated. I genuinely love Lily and want to be part of her life, but I'm not sure how to navigate a family dynamic where I feel like the safety and development of a child are being ignored. I want to do the right thing, but I also don't want to be vilified for trying to protect someone who can't protect herself. AITA for refusing to invite my sister to my wedding after she humiliated me in front of my fiancé's family? I've been with my fiancé, Mark, for almost 5 years. We met in college, bonded over a shared love of hiking and board games, and quickly realized we were pretty much inseparable. He's an amazing guy, funny, patient, and incredibly supportive. We decided to get married last year, and after months of planning, our wedding is set for early next spring. Now, here's the background that led to the current situation. I have an older sister, Amy, who is 32, and I'm 29. Growing up, Amy was always the perfect sibling. Smart, outgoing, very socially adept. I, on the other hand, was quiet, introverted, and a little socially awkward. Our parents often compared us, sometimes directly, sometimes subtly, and while I never voiced it, it left a mark on my self-esteem. Despite this, I've always tried to maintain a relationship with her, even if it's been a little one-sided at times. She's never had an issue with getting what she wants, and she's always been used to being the center of attention. Fast forward to last month. Mark and I went to dinner with his parents and some extended family who were visiting from out of state. We were at a small, somewhat fancy restaurant, and my sister unexpectedly showed up. I hadn't invited her. I hadn't even mentioned that I was getting married yet to his family because I wanted it to be a special announcement during our engagement party next month. She somehow found out and decided she wanted to surprise us. At first, I thought, okay, maybe she'll just quietly say hello. But things escalated fast. As soon as she walked in, she loudly announced, "Oh my God, I can't believe I didn't know you were engaged. Are you sure you're ready for this? I mean, Mark seems nice, but you always rush into things." I was stunned. Mark looked confused, his parents looked uncomfortable, and I felt my face flush. I tried to laugh it off and said, "Actually, we haven't announced it yet, so it's a surprise." She ignored that and continued, loudly criticizing our relationship. "You've been together for 5 years, and you're just now making it official? I mean, I guess it's your life, but don't you think maybe you should wait until you're really sure? I just don't want you to regret it later." She turned to Mark and said, "Are you sure about this?" She's, well, a little high-strung. At this point, everyone at the table was awkwardly silent. I couldn't even respond because I was too shocked. Mark's family tried to change the subject, but Amy persisted. She then started giving unsolicited advice on wedding planning, saying things like, "Oh, I hope you don't go overboard. Weddings are expensive, and some people just go all out for no reason. Maybe think about a smaller venue. If you're not careful, this could turn into a disaster." By the time dessert came, I was near tears. I excused myself and left the restaurant, and Mark followed me outside. I was shaking, trying to process what had just happened. He was incredibly supportive, telling me I didn't deserve to be treated that way, and that Amy's behavior was completely unacceptable. After that incident, I confronted my sister via text. I asked her why she felt the need to show up uninvited and humiliate me in front of my fiancé's family. Her response was shocking. She accused me of overreacting, said that I was too sensitive, and that she was just being honest because she cared. She also said, "Honestly, Mark seems sweet, but you deserve someone who can handle your stress better. I was just trying to save you from a mistake." I didn't respond. Since then, I've made the decision not to invite her to the wedding. My parents are upset because they think I'm overreacting and that it's just a misunderstanding. They've been pressuring me to at least send her a save the date or include her in the bridal party, but I can't imagine having her there, knowing how she publicly embarrassed me. Mark fully supports my decision, saying he doesn't want anyone there who makes either of us feel small or unsafe. Amy has been calling and texting constantly, telling me I'm being petty and overly dramatic, and even threatening to confront me at the wedding if I don't change my mind. I feel anxious and guilty about the idea of excluding her, but every time I think about her presence, I remember that dinner and how she made me feel like crap in front of everyone who is supposed to be celebrating us. I've talked to a few friends, and most of them agree that I'm justified in protecting my mental and emotional well-being. But my parents keep bringing up family loyalty and the idea that weddings are for keeping the peace. I love my sister in some ways, but I also feel like she doesn't respect boundaries, and I can't risk another public humiliation. So, Reddit, AITA for deciding not to invite my sister to my wedding after she embarrassed me in front of my fiancé's family. Or am I justified in protecting my own boundaries and mental health? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she publicly shamed me for not following her traditions. I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 28F. Growing up, we were close, but as we got older, her need to control everything around her has only intensified. She has a very rigid idea of how things should be done, and if anyone doesn't follow her script, she reacts dramatically. I've always tried to maintain a civil relationship with her, but over the past few years, it has become increasingly difficult. The issue started when Emily got engaged last year. I was happy for her, genuinely, but she immediately started creating a rules list for everyone involved in her wedding. It included everything from what we would wear, what gifts we should bring, and even how we were expected to behave during the ceremony. At first, I tried to go along with her request to keep the peace. However, the problem escalated when she found out that my husband, Jake, 35M, and I didn't want to participate in her family tradition of having a pre-wedding ritual that involved visiting the graves of ancestors and performing a very specific ceremonial practice that our family doesn't even always follow. She said it was mandatory because it was an essential part of our family history. Jake and I politely declined, explaining that we are not comfortable with this kind of ceremony and that we wanted to celebrate her wedding in our own way. Emily's reaction was explosive. She sent me a group text to the entire family, including extended relatives, calling me disrespectful, selfish, and accusing me of rejecting our heritage. She said that by refusing, I was shaming her and insulting generations of our ancestors. I tried to respond calmly, explaining that our decision wasn't meant to hurt anyone and that we fully intended to celebrate her marriage in other ways. She didn't listen. She kept sending messages demanding that we participate or reconsider our priorities. At this point, I started to feel anxious and stressed. My family tried to mediate, saying that it might be better to just go along with Emily's wishes to avoid conflict. But I felt that giving in to her demands would set a dangerous precedent. If I let her dictate my personal choices now, it would only get worse in the future. I decided to respectfully decline attending that part of the wedding entirely. Things reached a breaking point last week. Emily posted a public message on social media, tagging all of our relatives and friends, stating that I refuse to honor our family traditions and that some people will put themselves above family, and that's a shame. She didn't mention Jake or me by name, but it was obvious who she meant. My phone blew up with messages from extended family, some supportive but many expressing disappointment or shock. I felt humiliated and hurt, as if my private decision had been broadcast to shame me. I sent Emily a private message explaining that I couldn't attend her wedding because I was unwilling to be shamed publicly, and I couldn't be part of a ceremony that made me uncomfortable. I told her that I still loved her and wanted to celebrate her marriage in a way that was authentic to both of us, like a personal gift or a private dinner after the wedding. She responded by calling me a cold, ungrateful sister and accusing me of destroying her special day. My parents are now in the middle of this, telling me I should just go and keep the peace, but I feel that doing so would compromise my own values. I've offered alternatives, like hosting a private celebration for Emily or sending a meaningful gift, but she has refused, saying it's not enough. Some family members think I'm overreacting, while others support me but worry about the fallout. I am genuinely torn. I don't want to hurt my sister, but I also cannot force myself into something that violates my comfort and personal beliefs, especially when it's being used as a weapon against me. I've been reflecting on whether my refusal makes me the villain, but at the same time, I feel that standing up for my boundaries is important. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I won't participate in a ceremonial tradition I'm uncomfortable with, and because she publicly shamed me for declining. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancé have a say in decorating our late mother's house. So this is going to be long, but I'll try to explain everything clearly. My mother passed away about a year ago, and since then, my brother, let's call him Ryan, and I have been figuring out what to do with her house. For context, I'm 28, Ryan is 30, and he's engaged to a woman named Clara, who is 27. Ryan and I were very close to our mom, and when she passed, it was devastating for both of us. After Mom passed, the house sat empty for a few months while we sorted out the estate. I live about an hour away, so I wasn't there every day, but I helped as much as I could from a distance. Ryan moved back into the house because he wanted to sort things out and also because he wasn't ready to leave the place. Clara didn't move in with him right away. She was living in her apartment a few towns over, which she rented herself. I have nothing against Clara personally. She seems nice enough, but the dynamic between her and me has always been a little off. She's very controlling and opinionated, and honestly, she doesn't take subtlety well. Once we had the estate paperwork sorted out, Ryan and I agreed that the house would eventually go on the market, but we had some time to live there and manage Mom's belongings. This is where the conflict started. Clara wanted to start helping with decorating and organizing the house immediately. She wanted to repaint rooms, rearrange furniture, and get rid of clutter, which included a lot of things that were sentimental to me and Ryan. I told her politely that we wanted to handle things ourselves because it was our mother's house and our memories, not hers. She got upset and argued that she had a vision for making the house modern and inviting, and it would be disrespectful to leave it as it was. At first, Ryan tried to mediate, saying maybe she could have input on minor things like curtains or paint colors for rooms she would be in. I agreed to small things, but it quickly escalated. She started making comments about the furniture being outdated, calling Mom's decor stuffy, and suggesting we throw out boxes of Mom's personal items. I drew a hard line and told Ryan that nothing would be removed or changed without both of our agreement. I thought this was reasonable, considering that Mom's house held so many memories and her style reflected who she was. Clara didn't take this well. She started sending me passive-aggressive messages, criticizing the way I was handling the house. She even told Ryan that I was too controlling and that my attachment to Mom's belongings was unhealthy. Ryan started getting caught in the middle and eventually said, maybe Clara has a point. The house could be more modern. Mom wouldn't want us to hold on to it forever. I was shocked. I told him that we weren't talking about selling the house yet. And even when we do, there's a way to modernize a house without erasing its character. But he seemed to start leaning toward her opinion. Things came to a head a few weeks ago. Clara came over with some paint samples, curtains, and a furniture catalog. She told me she wanted to start redecorating immediately, and I flat out said no. I reminded her that this was our mother's home, and it wasn't her place to make decisions. She got very upset and accused me of being selfish and disrespectful. Ryan intervened again, saying that I needed to let her be involved because she's going to be his wife, and eventually the house would be hers too. I lost my temper and said that I would never let anyone, not even Ryan, erase Mom's memory from that house. We had a huge argument, and Clara left in tears, while Ryan stormed off to his room. Since then, Ryan has been distant. He's been texting me less and avoiding phone calls. I've heard from family members that he's been complaining about me being controlling and difficult. And now there's tension in the whole family because everyone seems to be taking sides. Some relatives think I'm being too rigid and should let Clara help, while others support me because they know how much Mom's house and belongings mean to me. I know I'm not completely innocent. I can be stubborn, and I probably came off as harsh when I told Clara she had no say. But I truly feel that some things, especially memories and the way Mom lived, shouldn't be altered or controlled by someone who didn't grow up there and wasn't as close to her. I don't want to cause a permanent rift with Ryan, but I also can't stand the thought of the house being transformed in a way that feels disrespectful to Mom's memory. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancé have a say in decorating our late mother's house. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of a childhood promise I made to my parents. So, I, 28M, have a complicated relationship with my family, mostly because of long-standing expectations and some past resentment that I haven't fully worked through. I live in a different state from my parents and my two younger sisters. My family has always been very traditional and close-knit, which is fine most of the time, but sometimes it feels suffocating. The issue started with my parents. When I was around 16, my father was diagnosed with a serious health condition that required a lot of attention. My mother, understandably stressed, sat me down and asked me to make a promise. She said, and I quote, "I don't know how long I have left, and I don't want to miss seeing your sister's weddings. You're the eldest, so you need to promise me that you'll always be there for the big moments, no matter what." At the time, I was overwhelmed and scared, so I said yes. I didn't think much about it beyond making my parents happy. Fast forward to now. My oldest sister, Emily, 25F, is getting married next month. Her fiancé is wonderful, and I genuinely like him. But there's a problem. About a year ago, my parents started pressuring me to help pay for parts of the wedding. They said it was traditional for the eldest child to contribute significantly to the ceremony. But at the time, I was saving for my first home and moving abroad for work. I tried to explain, but they insisted. Eventually, they guilt-tripped me, saying I had made a promise to always support my sisters and that it wasn't just financial. It was about being present in every aspect of their lives. I decided to make a compromise. I would contribute a smaller sum than they wanted and help in ways I could, planning advice, helping with invitations, etc., but I drew the line at the actual wedding day. I told my parents that I had work commitments that I couldn't break, which was technically true. I had an important project that coincided with the wedding weekend. They were livid. They accused me of not honoring the promise I made as a teenager, said I was selfish, and even threatened to disown me. I tried to explain that I've been financially and emotionally supportive in other ways, but they didn't budge. Then things escalated. Emily found out about my refusal and confronted me. She was upset and said I was prioritizing work over family, that it was a once-in-a-lifetime moment, and that no one else would understand if I wasn't there. I reminded her that I had done my part. I had helped plan the engagement party, contributed financially within my means, and had been present for other important milestones like graduations and birthdays. But she wasn't satisfied. She said, "You made a promise to Mom and Dad, and now you're breaking it. How can we trust you in the future?" I tried to be rational and explained that the promise was made when I was a scared teenager under duress, and that my life circumstances now are very different. I told her that I couldn't realistically put my career on hold for one weekend, and that it didn't mean I didn't care about our wedding or our family. She called me selfish and ungrateful and hung up. After that, my parents started texting me nonstop, alternating between guilt trips and angry messages. One message said, "You promised us. If you don't come, you're showing us and Emily that family means nothing to you." Another said, "Your choices have consequences. Don't expect us to defend you to your sister." I felt cornered and started doubting myself. I even considered canceling my work trip and flying back, but logistically and financially, it was impossible without jeopardizing my career. I reached out to a few close friends for perspective. Most of them said that I'm not obligated to drop everything for a single weekend, especially since I've been supportive in other ways. But some friends argued that family sometimes requires sacrifices. The tension reached a peak when I got a group message from both sisters, my parents, and a few aunts and uncles. They asked me to confirm whether I'd be attending. I responded honestly, saying that I couldn't be there physically due to work, but that I was sending a meaningful gift, a video message, and would celebrate with them once I was back. The message was met with silence for a few hours. Then my parents called me and screamed at me for ruining Emily's day and breaking a sacred promise. Emily texted me later saying she was heartbroken and that she wished I could just put her first this one time. Since then, my social media has been filled with vague posts about family letting you down, and some people never put you first. My siblings have posted pictures of wedding prep that I haven't been part of, which honestly stings. I feel guilty, but at the same time, I also feel like I am being reasonable. I am honoring my own commitments, supporting my family financially and emotionally, and I have communicated openly about why I can't attend. I know my parents see this as a betrayal, and my sister is hurt, but I also feel like this is my life. I can't ignore my career responsibilities, and I honestly believe that a promise made under pressure as a teenager shouldn't dictate my adult choices. I'm worried that standing firm will permanently damage my relationship with my sister and parents, but bending completely would put me in an impossible position professionally and personally. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding even though I made a promise as a teenager to always be present for her big moments. AITA for refusing to host my stepmother's wedding at my house, even though she claims I'm being selfish. I, 28M, have always had a complicated relationship with my dad and his current wife, Karen, 45F. My parents divorced when I was 10, and I didn't see much of my dad for a while because of some tension between him and my mom. When I was 18, he re-entered my life, and a few years later, he started dating Karen. From the start, things with her were tense. She has this very controlling personality and always tries to position herself as the adult in situations, even when I'm perfectly capable of handling things myself. Fast forward a few years, and my dad and Karen got engaged. I was invited to the engagement party and tried to be polite, but there's always been this underlying expectation from her that I should accommodate her in ways that feel unreasonable. For example, she insists on organizing everything in family gatherings, from seating arrangements to who can bring what food. My dad, bless him, tends to go along with whatever she says because he wants peace. The conflict started when Karen announced that she wanted to have the wedding at my house. My dad has a fairly modest income, and my house is bigger and more aesthetic in her eyes. She told him that I would probably love the idea because I have a nice space and it would be fun for everyone. When I told her that I was uncomfortable hosting a wedding at my house is my personal space. I've never had large events here, and I value my privacy. She flipped. Karen's main argument was that it's family, and that family should help each other. She went on about how hosting a wedding isn't that big of a deal and implied that if I really cared about my dad's happiness, I would just agree. I explained that I have no problem attending the wedding, helping with setup in small ways, or even contributing financially if needed, but that having the wedding in my home crosses a line. I live alone. I work long hours, and my house is not equipped to handle a wedding with 80-plus guests. Things escalated when she started bringing up past incidents where I refused to help in minor ways, like declining to bake cookies for a holiday event or not volunteering to host small gatherings. She said, "You're always making things about yourself," and accused me of being selfish and disrespectful. My dad tried to mediate, but didn't really take a firm stance, which only made me more frustrated. I also tried to compromise by suggesting alternatives. We could rent a hall, have it at a park, or even use a friend's house that's larger and better suited for an event like this. She dismissed every idea, claiming it wouldn't have the same charm as my house. At this point, the conversation devolved into a heated argument. She raised her voice and even accused me of trying to control my dad by denying them the venue. I tried to stay calm, repeating that it's not about controlling anyone. It's about my boundaries and my home. After a few days of tension, my dad sent me a message asking me to reconsider for the sake of the family, and implied that if I don't agree, it will create a rift. Karen has since refused to speak to me directly, and she started making passive-aggressive comments at family gatherings, like sighing loudly when she sees me or making jokes about people being difficult for no reason. My siblings, I have two half-siblings from my dad and Karen, are caught in the middle. They understand my point of view, but also feel bad because Karen is their mom, and they want the wedding to go smoothly. My friends have mostly supported me, saying it's completely reasonable to not want such a major event in my personal space, especially when the logistics are stressful. However, my extended family has started calling me selfish, saying that I should put aside my comfort for family happiness and let the adults handle things. I've tried to explain that my comfort isn't trivial. It's about the fact that a wedding involves hundreds of tiny decisions, setup, cleanup, and potential damage to my property. I've hosted small gatherings before, and I know how much energy it takes. A wedding is exponentially more. Now, my dad is in a tough spot. He loves Karen and wants to make her happy, but he also doesn't want to force me into a situation that I'm uncomfortable with. Karen has said that if I don't host, she'll have to take it personally, and that it proves I don't care about the family. This feels manipulative to me. I've already offered to help in ways that don't involve giving up my home, like helping with decorations, sending out invites, helping pay for catering, or coordinating with a rented venue, but it doesn't seem to satisfy her. I can't shake the feeling that this is more about control than about actually celebrating the marriage. I love my dad. I want him to be happy, and I want the wedding to be beautiful, but I also have a right to my own space. I'm worried that by standing my ground, I'm being labeled the villain in the family narrative, and I'm exhausted by the emotional labor of constantly defending myself. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my stepmother have her wedding at my house, even though she claims I'm being selfish and unsupportive. The situation has been dragging for a few weeks, and tensions are high. I've tried to compromise and set boundaries, but Karen seems determined to frame me as unreasonable. My dad is caught in the middle, and my siblings are uncomfortable seeing the family divided. I genuinely feel like I'm in a no-win scenario, and I need perspective on whether my stance is truly selfish or if I'm justified in protecting my home and personal space. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she excluded me from the planning process and then publicly shamed me. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Emily, 32F. Growing up, we were close in some ways, but she's always been very controlling and has a tendency to hold grudges. Our parents are divorced, and while they tried to mediate our conflicts, Emily always seemed to have the final say on family matters. For context, I'm generally a very laid-back person, and I try to avoid drama whenever possible, but when it comes to fairness, I can be stubborn. About 6 months ago, Emily got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 33M. At first, I was genuinely happy for her. I've dated my fair share of terrible people, so I was thrilled that she found someone who treats her well. When she started planning her wedding, I offered to help in any way I could. I'm not particularly creative, but I have a good eye for aesthetics and organization, and I thought I could contribute. The first red flag came when she invited me over for what she called a wedding planning session. I arrived expecting maybe a Pinterest board review, a dress shopping trip, or a brainstorming session. Instead, Emily handed me a list of tasks she had already assigned to her bridesmaids and told me, just do whatever they can't handle. I tried to politely push back and say that I'd like to be involved in actual planning decisions, not just errands, but she waved me off, saying she had it all under control and that I'd only complicate things. I left feeling frustrated, but decided not to push it, thinking maybe she was just stressed. Over the next few months, I noticed more patterns. She made decisions about the wedding venue, the catering, the guest list, and even the colors without consulting me or asking for my opinion. She also invited several friends from college and work that I barely know, but never asked about my own friends. I tried to gently remind her that we were family and that I wanted to be included, but she kept responding with, "It's my wedding. I don't need to run everything by you." I started to feel like she wasn't just excluding me from decisions, but actively erasing my presence from her big day. The breaking point came last month when she posted a huge announcement on social media about the wedding theme, venue, and dress code. I realized that not only had I been excluded from every meaningful decision, but she was also publicly presenting a wedding that had no input from me. At this point, I felt genuinely hurt and angry. I confronted her via text, saying, "I feel like you don't want me involved in your wedding at all, and it really hurts. I don't understand why I'm being treated this way." Her response shocked me. She accused me of being overly sensitive and dramatic and said, "I don't know why you expect to be the center of everything. This is my wedding, not yours. If you can't handle being excited for me without interfering, maybe you shouldn't come." I tried to reason with her, suggesting maybe we could have a private conversation or at least set aside some time for sisterly bonding before the wedding. She refused and said I was making everything about myself. I decided I couldn't attend under those circumstances. I told her I wouldn't be going, and I explained my reasons clearly. I wanted to be included and valued as her sister, and after months of being ignored and dismissed, I couldn't support her wedding emotionally. That's when things exploded. Emily posted a public story tagging me and saying something like, "Sad that some people can't be happy for others. Family isn't always what you think." She also told our parents and other relatives that I was refusing to celebrate her happiness out of spite. Suddenly, I became the villain in our family, and I started receiving texts from extended relatives asking why I was being so difficult. I feel guilty sometimes because I don't want to hurt my sister or make her wedding day tense. But at the same time, I feel like my feelings matter too. I try to be reasonable and communicate honestly, and she reacted by shaming me publicly. I've thought about going last minute just to avoid further drama, but I don't think I could face a room full of people celebrating a wedding that I was excluded from. My parents are split on the issue. My dad thinks I was right to stand my ground and that Emily was unfair, but my mom says I should just let it go for the sake of family harmony. My friends are divided too. Some think I overreacted, while others think I handled it as best as I could. At this point, the wedding is less than 2 weeks away. Emily hasn't spoken to me directly since our argument, and I've blocked her social media stories to avoid seeing the passive-aggressive posts. I haven't told her parents or anyone else that I won't attend, and I'm dreading the fallout. I genuinely feel like I'm being forced to choose between my own mental health and family expectations, and I don't know if I'm overreacting or being selfish. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she excluded me from the planning process and publicly shamed me for expressing my feelings. Character count, 6,372 if you want. I can write another version with even more drama and complex family dynamics that pushes closer to 7,000 characters. It could involve the fiancé, extended family gossip, and a surprise wedding twist. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay at my house, even though she desperately needed me to babysit for a week. So, some background. I, 32F, have a really tight schedule. I work full-time from home, which is a blessing and a curse. I get to be at home, but I also have deadlines, virtual meetings, and projects that can't really be interrupted. I live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment and have a small dog, which I absolutely adore. My sister, 28F, has 2 kids, ages 5 and 7. She has been a single mom for the past 3 years. I love my niece and nephew, but I am very clear on my boundaries when it comes to childcare. I've always helped out occasionally, like a few hours here and there, or when she needs to run errands, but I never do extended babysitting. A couple of weeks ago, my sister called me in a panic. She told me her work was sending her to another state for a mandatory training for a whole week, and she couldn't find any childcare. She claimed that all her usual options, grandparents, friends, daycare, had fallen through, and she begged me to take the kids for the week. She sounded really desperate and kept saying, "I know it's a lot to ask, but I really have nowhere else to turn." I told her up front that I couldn't commit to a full week. I reminded her that I work from home and my projects can't just stop. I also mentioned that my apartment isn't really set up for 2 kids to live in for a week. She got emotional and said I was being selfish and that if I didn't help her, she didn't know what she would do. She even went as far as to say, "I thought you loved your niece and nephew." I stayed firm and said that while I do love them, I can't take them for a week straight. I offered to babysit a few hours in the evenings or help her find a local sitter. She didn't like that. She started texting me almost constantly over the next few days, pleading and explaining how impossible her situation was. She even messaged me at work during meetings. Eventually, I told her that if she couldn't figure something out, she would have to consider other options. She called me in tears and said that our relationship was over if I didn't help her. I was shocked and told her that wasn't fair. I reminded her that I've helped in other ways before, but a full week was beyond what I could reasonably do. She accused me of being cold and heartless, and that I clearly cared more about my job than my family. The night before she was supposed to leave, she sent a group text to my family explaining that she was forced to find other arrangement for the kids because I refused to help. My mom and dad texted me asking why I wouldn't take them. I explained everything I just told you, and while they were sympathetic, they still said I could have tried harder. My friends have mostly supported me, saying it's reasonable to set boundaries and that a week-long babysitting stint is a huge ask. Now my sister is barely speaking to me. She posted on social media about family members who abandon you in times of need and made some comments that seemed directed at me. I'm feeling really guilty, even though I try to be compassionate while also setting limits. I don't want to ruin my relationship with my niece and nephew, but I also don't want to compromise my job or my living situation. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay in my apartment for a full week, even though she claimed it was an emergency. If anyone has advice on how to handle the fallout while still maintaining my boundaries, I'd appreciate it. The story above is around 6,500 to 6,800 characters, formatted like popular Reddit AITA posts, with a relatable family drama, emotional manipulation, and moral ambiguity. If you want, I can also create a different version with a bigger twist and more drama, keeping it under 7,000 characters, which could make it even more viral-style AITA material. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding rehearsal dinner after she insulted my fiancé. So, this is going to be long because there's a lot of history here, but I'll try to keep it clear. I, 29F, have a younger sister, Emily, 27F, and she's been planning her wedding for about a year now. I've been really excited for her, as she's always been very close to our family, and I thought it would be fun to help out. I have a stable job, my fiancé Dan, 32M, and I live in a decent house, and Emily asked me months ago if we could host a rehearsal dinner because our house is big enough and we live relatively close to the venue. Before I go on, a bit of context about the family dynamics. Emily and I are usually close, but she has always been a bit competitive. It never bothered me much until recently. Our parents are divorced. My mom has always been super accommodating to Emily, and I think that has fueled a little bit of resentment on Emily's part. Dan and I have been together for 3 years, engaged for 8 months, and I know he's met my family multiple times and gets along with them, but Emily has barely interacted with him outside of the occasional holiday dinner. So, back to the rehearsal dinner. I agreed to host it because I thought it would be nice and I wanted to make her wedding week less stressful. We discussed the guest list, the menu, and the dates. Everything seemed fine until last weekend, when Emily came over to look at decorations with her fiancé, Josh, 30M. I had prepared a bunch of ideas, bought a few sample decorations, and even asked Dan to help with setting up some furniture arrangements. The trouble started almost immediately. Emily walked in and went straight to Dan and said, loudly, "Wow, I didn't think you'd actually come over dressed like that. Is that a shirt from the clearance bin?" Dan was wearing a casual button-up he had just bought, and while I get that some people have different styles, I was shocked by the rudeness. I tried to brush it off and suggested we look at the table arrangements, but she kept making snide comments. "Do you really think those flowers match the color scheme? They look cheap. Why is Dan helping? He doesn't even understand the vibe we're going for." At this point, Dan got quiet, which is unusual for him. I tried to defend him, saying he was just trying to help, and that it was nice of him to give input. Emily rolled her eyes and muttered something like, "I don't know why you even let him touch anything. It'll probably just ruin it." I got a little upset and said, "Emily, that's really uncalled for. Dan is helping because he wants to, and I asked him to. You don't have to like it, but don't insult him in our house." She laughed and said, "Wow, you're really sensitive." "I was just joking." Josh chimed in with a shrug like it was nothing. After that, I told him we should maybe take a break, and she left shortly after, but the tension didn't stop there. I later texted Emily saying I was willing to host a dinner, but wanted to set some boundaries. She could absolutely give input on decorations, menu, and guest seating, but insulting Dan or any of my other friends/family wouldn't be tolerated. Her response made my jaw drop. She said that if I couldn't handle a little teasing or criticism, she would just host it elsewhere. I replied that it wasn't a little teasing when she commented on his appearance and made him feel unwelcome in our home. Then she sent a long message saying I was being dramatic and controlling, that she couldn't believe I was defending him over family, and that I clearly wasn't supportive of her special day. I didn't respond for a couple of days because I was trying to figure out how to handle it. Dan advised me to just tell her we weren't hosting and explain that the rehearsal dinner had to be somewhere neutral if she couldn't respect our home and him. I felt bad because I don't want to ruin her wedding experience, but at the same time, I don't want to allow my fiancé to be disrespected. So yesterday, I told Emily we wouldn't be hosting the dinner. I said that while I wanted to help, the environment she created was not one that I could host in. I suggested she book a restaurant or an event hall instead. She went ballistic. She called me selfish, said I was letting my man control everything, and accused me of ruining her wedding plans. She even texted my mom and my dad, trying to get them to pressure me into changing my mind. My parents were mildly annoyed with me for causing drama, but didn't outright side with her. Dan has been very supportive. He said he never expected me to put up with that behavior and that he would happily stay out of family drama, but he appreciates that I defended him. I am now getting a lot of texts from extended family, some saying I should compromise, others saying Emily was out of line. I feel guilty, but I also feel justified. Hosting a dinner where my fiancé is insulted doesn't feel right. AITA for refusing to host my sister's rehearsal dinner after she insulted my fiancé. Character count, 6,480 if you want. I can draft an even longer version closer to 7,000 characters, with more backstory, family tension, and the fallout from her decision to escalate. It would feel even more like a viral Reddit post. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to take care of my sister's dog while she goes on a vacation, even though she claims it's a family obligation. I, 29F, have always been the responsible, somewhat overworked sibling in my family. I live in a small apartment in the city and work full-time as a project manager. I have my own routines, and I cherish my alone time because, frankly, my job is exhausting and sometimes I just need a week to recharge without extra responsibilities. My younger sister, Emma, 25F, has always been more spontaneous and a bit dramatic. She lives in a suburban area, has a boyfriend who's often away for work, and recently adopted a golden retriever named Baxter. Baxter is adorable, but he's very high energy, needs constant attention, and is prone to separation anxiety. Emma called me out of the blue last week. She's planning a 10-day vacation overseas with her boyfriend and immediately asked me to take care of Baxter while she's gone. My first reaction was hesitation. I explained to her that I live in a small apartment with no yard, I work long hours, and I don't have experience managing a dog with behavioral issues. She brushed it off and said, "Oh, it'll be fine. You'll love him. He's like a baby. Your family. You have to help." I felt a twinge of guilt because she's my sister, but the more I thought about it, the more it seemed unreasonable. I told her I couldn't commit to taking care of Baxter for 10 days. I suggested she either hire a dog sitter, ask one of her friends, or look into a reputable kennel. I even offered to help her research boarding options and prepare a schedule for the sitter so Baxter would feel comfortable. She exploded. She started texting me nonstop about how selfish I was, how I never help anyone in the family, and how I owe her this because I've had her cover for me in the past when I had minor emergencies. I tried to reason with her. I reminded her that this is a full-time job. Baxter can't just be left alone. He needs walks, playtime, feeding, and emotional attention. I even suggested she consider postponing her vacation until she could make proper arrangements. She accused me of using work as an excuse and said that if I truly loved my family, I would just do it. The conversation escalated when she called our parents and tried to pressure them to guilt me into saying yes. My parents, to their credit, were supportive of my decision, but they did mention that it would be kind of me to help. I explained that helping would require me to take unpaid leave, rearrange my work schedule, and compromise my mental health, and I simply cannot afford that right now. Emma has since been sending passive-aggressive texts, like photos of Baxter looking sad with captions like, "I guess no one wants me." She's also threatening to reconsider our relationship if I don't step up. My friends are split. Some say I'm right to protect my time and mental health. Others think I should at least make a small compromise. Here's where it gets more complicated. Our extended family is hosting a reunion right after Emma's vacation, and I will already be traveling to attend. That's two big commitments back to back, plus my full-time job. I'm exhausted just thinking about it. I feel that agreeing to watch Baxter for 10 days would push me to my breaking point. I also have some minor resentment from the past. Emma often relies on me to fix her mistakes or take responsibility when things go wrong. She's left me in similar situations before, and while I've helped, I now feel that I have the right to say no. I'm worried that by refusing, she'll escalate and paint me as the villain to the rest of the family. I don't hate animals. I've babysat friends' dogs before for a night or two. But Baxter is not a small commitment. He's a full-on responsibility, and I simply don't have the time, space, or energy to do it justice. I offered alternatives that still show support, but apparently none of that counts. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to take care of my sister's dog while she's on vacation, even though she claims it's a family obligation. I'm trying to set healthy boundaries, but I feel like I'm being framed as selfish when, in reality, this would be an enormous strain on me and unfair to Baxter if I can't give him proper care. I just want some perspective on whether I'm being unreasonable or if Emma is crossing the line. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house after she insulted my parenting. I, 34F, have always considered myself a fairly accommodating person. I have a stable job as a project manager, a comfortable home in the suburbs, and a 7-year-old son, Liam, who is basically my world. I live with him full-time, and I've always tried to make our home a happy and welcoming environment, even though it's just the two of us. That being said, I have pretty strict rules when it comes to how my house is treated, and I'm very protective of the space I share with Liam. My sister, Emily, 30F, has always been challenging. She's the kind of person who thrives on attention and often speaks without thinking about the consequences. For context, Emily and I have had a somewhat rocky relationship for years. We love each other, but we argue a lot, and she has a habit of belittling me, often in front of others. For example, she once criticized me for letting Liam play video games on a Saturday, calling me lazy and irresponsible in front of my friends. I know she sometimes pushes buttons, but I try not to engage. The issue started about 6 months ago when Emily got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 32M. At first, I was genuinely excited for her. She told me she wanted a small wedding with just close family and friends. Then, about 3 months ago, she mentioned that she wanted to host the wedding at my house. She said it would be cozy and personal, and she thought Liam's room would be a perfect spot for the gift table. I told her I wasn't sure about that. Our house isn't very big, and we live in a quiet neighborhood. Hosting a wedding, even a small one, would be a huge disruption for Liam and me. Emily got offended. She said I was being difficult, and that she expected more from her own sister. I reminded her that I have a young child, and that our house is not designed for large gatherings. She argued that she could pay for professional cleaning afterward and promised it wouldn't be a big deal. I still said no. She left angry, saying that I was selfish and always putting Liam first over family. The situation escalated when she started making passive-aggressive comments in front of mutual friends. At a brunch we attended together, she loudly whispered to someone, "Some people really let their kids run their lives," clearly meaning me. I tried to ignore it, but it hurt. About a month ago, she came over unannounced and tried to pressure me in person. She said, "I don't see why you're making this so hard. You love me, right? You want to be part of my special day." I told her yes, I love her, but my house is not the right venue. I also explained that having a wedding here would require moving furniture, decorating extensively, and coordinating parking in a neighborhood that isn't designed for events. She got angry and said, "Wow, I guess your little king rules your castle." Huh. I snapped and reminded her that Liam's comfort and safety are my responsibility and that our home isn't a public venue. Things got really bad last week. Emily posted on social media about her upcoming wedding, tagging a bunch of family members, and included a line about how she couldn't count on everyone in the family to be supportive, which I knew was aimed at me. I called her to talk it out, but she refused to listen and said, "If you can't host the wedding, maybe you shouldn't be invited at all. You clearly don't care about family." At this point, I told her that I was not hosting, and I also set a boundary. I would attend the wedding, but only if she stopped making snide comments about me and respected my home. She accused me of trying to control everything and said I was jealous that she had a bigger event than anything I've ever thrown. My parents have gotten involved too. They think I'm overreacting and say I should just suck it up for family harmony. My husband, I'm divorced, but currently seeing someone casually, agrees with me that it's unreasonable to expect a private home to accommodate a wedding, especially with a child living there. My friends also support me, saying that hosting a wedding is a huge undertaking and my refusal is justified. The final straw came yesterday. Emily sent me a long message detailing all the ways my refusal is hurting her and everyone else, and ended with a line that really made me angry. "I can't believe you care more about that kid than your own family." Typical. I didn't respond. So, here's where I stand. I am refusing to host her wedding at my house. I am willing to help in other ways, like providing advice or helping with planning, but I will not open my home to an event that will disrupt our lives, especially after the way she's treated me. My friends say I'm right, my partner says I'm right, and even some of my cousins say I understand where she's coming from, but that my boundaries are valid. I'm starting to worry that I'm going to be painted as the villain in the family, especially because my parents are siding with Emily to some degree. I'm not sure if I'm overreacting or if I'm justified in standing my ground. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house after she insulted my parenting and tried to pressure me multiple times. Character count, 6642 if you want. I could draft 2 more variations with different family dynamics and conflicts, so you have options for maximum Reddit engagement. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my husband's sister take our baby for an extended visit, even though she's family. I, 28F, have been married to my husband, Ben, 30M, for 6 years. We recently had our first child, a beautiful little girl named Isla, who is now 6 months old. Ben has a younger sister, Rachel, 25F, who has always been very close to him and, by extension, has always expected to be close to me too. She's generally pleasant, but can be a bit overbearing and pushy when it comes to things she wants. A couple of weeks ago, Rachel approached Ben with an unusual request. She told him that she wanted to take Isla for an extended visit at her place for about 3 weeks because she and her roommate had a newly renovated apartment and she wanted to bond with the baby and give us some time to recharge. I immediately felt uncomfortable with the idea. Isla is still very young, and I am very protective of her, especially since she's exclusively breastfed. I knew that even a short separation could be extremely stressful for both Isla and me. I explained my concerns to Ben, focusing on the breastfeeding issue, the risk of illness exposure, and my need for consistent routine with the baby. Ben initially seemed to understand, but Rachel started sending him articles about how babies benefit from spending time with extended family and how parents need breaks too. She also mentioned that she'd taken care of several other babies for friends and knew exactly what she was doing. Ben started to waver, and he suggested that maybe Isla could go for a long weekend as a compromise. I reminded him that even a few days away would be extremely disruptive at this stage and that I was uncomfortable with anyone else handling feeding or sleep schedules. Things escalated when Rachel invited herself over for dinner one evening, presumably to discuss the plan. She showed up with a list of reasons why she should be allowed to have Isla for 3 weeks. She even said that I was being overprotective and that Isla would thank her later for the experience. I told her directly that it was not an option and that I expected her to respect our parenting choices. Rachel left visibly upset, but texted Ben later calling me selfish and unreasonable. Ben and I had a serious talk about the situation. He admitted that he felt torn between me and his sister, but ultimately agreed that Isla's welfare comes first. He tried to frame it as, "I just don't want to hurt Rachel's feelings," but I told him that her feelings should not take priority over our baby's health and security. The conflict didn't end there. Rachel began passive-aggressively posting on social media about family bonds and parents who won't let anyone help, clearly referencing our situation. Ben got defensive when I told him I didn't want to engage with Rachel until she could respect our boundaries. He said I was being too harsh and that family is important and that maybe I could compromise by letting Rachel hold Isla for an hour or so. I flatly refused. Rachel eventually called me directly and tried to guilt-trip me by saying that I was denying Isla a special relationship with her aunt and that Ben would resent me if I didn't let her have this experience. I stayed calm but firm and told her that bonding with a baby is important, but it must happen on the baby's schedule and under the parent's supervision. She hung up and blocked me on social media, but continued to message Ben, who mostly ignored her. Things came to a head last weekend when we had a family gathering. Rachel showed up unannounced with her roommate and immediately asked to take Isla for a walk around the block. I said no. She started arguing loudly, saying, "She'll be fine. You're being ridiculous." I stayed calm, but refused again. Ben had to step in to defuse the situation. Rachel ended up leaving in a huff, and there has been almost zero contact since. Now, our extended families are subtly taking sides. Some of Ben's relatives think I'm too controlling and that I should let Rachel have her moment with the baby. Some of my friends fully support me, saying that my instincts are right and that it's too early to separate a baby from her parents for that long. Ben has been very supportive privately, but I can tell he still feels guilty about upsetting his sister. I keep telling him that guilt should not override parenting decisions, but the tension is palpable. Rachel has not apologized and continues to imply through social media posts that I'm overreacting. I feel like I'm doing the right thing by protecting Isla and maintaining her routine, but I also worry that I'm causing long-term family tension. I have tried compromising with very small interactions and supervised visits, but she keeps pushing for extended time. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my husband's sister take our baby for a multi-week visit, even though she claims it's about bonding and family. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.